War has always been a strong theme in the gaming world, whether through frenetic battles where each shot and explosion keeps the adrenaline at its peak, or through games that explore the emotional and moral consequences faced in these conflicts. Each approach brings a unique perspective, revealing that war is not only a clash of forces, but also of ideals, trauma, and sacrifices. In this list, we'll look at games that turn the battlefield into a stage for heroism, tragedy, and tough dilemmas. Whether facing relentless enemies or dealing with the guilt of the choices made, each game makes us feel the weight of combat in different ways. I'm Jax, and if you're new here, welcome to the Play Hunters channel. I bring daily content so you won't miss a single detail of the gaming universe. And if you can, please subscribe to help me grow. I'd really appreciate it, from one gamer to another. Kicking off the list with a true heavyweight of modern FPS. This game delivers an intense campaign full of impactful moments and breathtaking atmosphere. Call of Duty Modern Warfare places you in the middle of a brutal conflict in the Middle East, where no side is completely right or wrong. The narrative focuses on moral dilemmas, tense missions, and urban battles that make you feel the weight of every decision. With realistic scenes and operations inspired by real military conflicts, the immersion is total. The standout feature is the realism of combat. Each weapon has a distinct weight. The sound of gunfire is incredibly authentic, and the movement offers a level of fluidity that few shooters achieve. Some missions throw you into tight, dark spaces, forcing you to use night vision goggles to proceed cautiously. Others open up to full-on gunfights in wide-open areas, with cinematic explosions and frenetic battles. All of this is packed into impressive graphics, where every detail of the environment contributes to a tense atmosphere. Whether infiltrating enemy bases, clearing buildings with tactical precision, or facing waves of soldiers in war-torn streets, the pace remains gripping from start to finish. The campaign doesn't shy away from exploring heavy themes, showing the harsh side of modern conflicts. And when the story ends, the multiplayer offers intense matches and an addictive progression system, ensuring hours of fun. A must-play for anyone seeking an intense campaign and thrilling combat. Now let's talk about one of the most intense and underrated FPS games ever made. With frenetic combat and a surprisingly captivating story, Titanfall 2 places you in the midst of an interplanetary war where soldiers and colossal machines fight for dominance. Amidst this chaos, a rookie pilot inherits an advanced Titan and must complete a mission that could change the outcome of the conflict. The bond created between the two is one of the high points of the campaign, which balances reckless action with emotional moments and even a touch of humor. Each mission presents unique challenges, requiring you to master both the speed and agility of the pilot and the brutal firepower of the Titan. There are platforming sections with jumps and wall runs, and others that throw you straight into explosive battles against giant enemies. One of the most striking moments involves an unexpected mechanic that alters how time works, resulting in one of the most creative missions ever seen in a shooter. The pace never slows down, keeping the adrenaline high from start to finish. When the story ends, the multiplayer delivers mind-blowing matches where every move counts. Well-designed maps favor both ground combat and Titan battles, making each confrontation dynamic and unpredictable. The progression system is fast, allowing you to constantly test new weapons and abilities. Unfortunately, the game was released amid industry giants and got overshadowed, but the truth is, it has one of the best campaigns in the genre. If you haven't played it yet, get ready for an amazing surprise. Moving on to a game that takes combat to a period rarely explored in modern FPS games. Instead of advanced technology and automated weapons, Battlefield 1 places you in the middle of World War I, where the conflict was brutal and every step forward on the battlefield required courage. The campaign is divided into short stories, showing different perspectives on the war from multiple fronts. From pilots to infantry soldiers, each narrative provides a unique look at the impact of the conflict. The gameplay follows the shift in time, bringing less precise weapons and heavy vehicles that require skill to maneuver. The battles are intense, with brutal hand-to-hand combat and environments that change as destruction progresses. Some missions put you inside tanks and planes, while others require stealth and strategy to survive. Even though the campaign is short, it creates moments of tension and emotion, deviating from traditional linear gunfights. The game captures the feeling of being in a chaotic war, where each victory feels hard-earned and each defeat can be devastating. The setting design impresses, with trenches, destroyed cities, and vast battlefields recreating the brutal reality of the conflict. Moving to a less explored historical period brings a fresh twist to the franchise, keeping the combat engaging and full of strategic possibilities. A game that recaptures the essence of classic warfare and delivers unforgettable moments. In fifth place, we have the perfect game for anyone who loves sniping from afar. Set in Nazi-occupied France during World War II, Sniper Elite 5 follows an elite sniper on a mission to stop a secret Nazi project. The enemies dominate cities, fortresses, and factories, turning each environment into a strategic challenge. The missions offer freedom to explore and find the best attack points, ensuring unpredictable confrontations with every new target. The combat maintains the franchise's high standard, with shots requiring patience and precision to achieve the devastating effect of the iconic X-ray camera. Each shot can cause brutal damage to enemies, making every elimination impactful. The AI reacts to movements, patrolling areas, and trying to locate threats, but it still has flaws that can make some situations easier. Between a stealth approach and a frenetic gunfight, there are always new ways to handle the challenges. In addition to the campaign, there are special assassinations that allow you to eliminate targets in unique ways, creating memorable moments. Although some missions repeat the sabotage and equipment destruction style, the large maps and multiple routes keep the game interesting. With refined mechanics and more approaches available, this sequel keeps the brutality of the combat while expanding freedom to explore and eliminate targets in the best way possible. Continuing, we have a game that brings back the atmosphere of the great confrontations of World War II with intense combat and a more personal narrative. Call of Duty World War II follows a group of soldiers on memorable missions, from D-Day to the liberation of Paris. Instead of exaggerated battles against superpowered enemies, the story focuses on survival and the challenges faced by the platoon. The characters' dialogues and internal conflicts make each mission more engaging, creating a more human portrayal of war. The combat returns to the classic style, with no futuristic technologies or special abilities, demanding precision and strategic movement. Each weapon has its own weight, making gunfights more realistic and challenging. The campaign offers varied moments, including explosive battles, stealth missions, and even infiltration sequences where tension is constant. The game also adds a support system between soldiers, where you can call for ammunition, medical kits, and even airstrikes, reinforcing the feeling that no one fights alone. Even though it's a game focused on action, there are quieter moments that help build the emotional impact of the war. From struggling to advance under enemy fire to small interactions on the battlefield, every detail contributes to a campaign that, despite following the series' formula, brings memorable sequences. The mix of epic scenes, strategic combat, and an engaging narrative makes this one of the most intense games in the franchise. Moving on to a game that steps away from traditional battlefields and places the action in the midst of a conflict between police and organized crime. Instead of global wars, the story follows a detective involved in a dangerous conspiracy, where betrayals and corruption are everywhere. Battlefield Hardline has a format inspired by TV series, with missions divided into episodes and a narrative full of twists. The urban setting and memorable characters make every moment feel like a tense chapter in a police investigation. Unlike other games in the franchise, combat isn't the only option. As a police officer, you can arrest criminals by showing your badge and handcuffing them, avoiding unnecessary confrontations. The campaign balances stealth moments with explosive action scenes, including intense shootouts in narrow alleys, electrifying car chases, and operations in drug hideouts. There are even unexpected situations, like fighting to avoid being attacked by an alligator in a swamp. All of this keeps the story unpredictable and full of memorable moments. Even though it brings drastic changes to the franchise, the game succeeds by creating an engaging and dynamic campaign. The episodic format keeps the rhythm addictive, always leaving you wanting to see what happens next. The urban environments and varied challenges ensure that each mission has its own identity, steering away from the feeling of repetition. Hardline proves that not every shooter needs a war to deliver an intense, adrenaline-filled experience. In 8th place, we have a game about war, where the focus isn't on gunfights, but rather on the consequences of war, treating the conflict in a way few have dared to do. Instead of controlling soldiers in heroic battles, this War of Mine puts you in the shoes of civilians trapped in the middle of a devastating conflict. The fight isn't for victories on the battlefield, but for daily survival, facing food shortages, cold, illness, and the difficult choice between morality and necessity. Every night, the search for supplies becomes riskier, and every decision could mean the difference between living another day or losing everything. The game balances management and stealth, requiring planning to keep the shelter running and the characters healthy. Exploring the ruined city is always tense, as other survivors may react unpredictably. Some may allow trade, while others will attack without hesitation. Brutal situations arise constantly, from looting a defenseless couple to deciding whether it's worth risking helping someone in danger. The impact of these choices goes beyond the physical, affecting the psychological state of the characters and making each day increasingly difficult. The dark atmosphere, the worn-out art style, and the melancholic soundtrack reinforce the weight of the theme. The game doesn't treat war as something glorious. Small victories, like securing enough food or finding medicine before someone worsens, bring temporary relief before a new crisis arises. The sense of fragility and injustice is constant, making each playthrough unique and unpredictable. A raw and unforgettable take on the true impact of conflict. Another game with a different perspective on war, focusing more on the emotional side, is Valiant, which portrays the human impact of World War I. The story follows different characters whose lives intertwine amidst the conflict, showing suffering, hope, and the tough choices that need to be made. The narrative is full of emotion and is enhanced by a striking artistic direction, turning each scene into a true animated painting. The gameplay revolves around solving puzzles and overcoming challenges that reflect the hardships of war. There are no gunfights or direct combat, just the search for ways to move forward, whether escaping prisons, crossing trenches, or helping the wounded. Some sequences mix moments of action and stealth, like hiding from searchlights at night or using disguises to go unnoticed. Each mechanic is naturally integrated into the story, ensuring that the game never loses its narrative essence. Even when addressing such a heavy theme, there's room for moments of lightness and humanity, showing that war doesn't entirely erase acts of kindness and courage. The game also presents historical facts throughout the journey, contextualizing events and technologies of the time. With a sensitive storyline and a unique approach, it delivers a touching and unforgettable view of the true impacts of war. Let's talk about one of the most iconic franchises in first-person shooters. Halo: The Master Chief Collection brings together the entire saga of the legendary Master Chief, allowing you to relive his journey against cosmic threats. The story unfolds in a vast universe, where humanity faces both an alien alliance and existential struggles. The campaign stands out by offering varied missions, from massive battles to more strategic and atmospheric moments. The progression of the story takes you to war-torn worlds, alien ruins, and space battles, always maintaining a sense of urgency. Each game in the collection maintains its own identity, with Halo Combat Evolved establishing the foundation of the franchise, Halo 2 expanding the universe with new perspectives, and Halo 3 delivering a grand finale. Halo 4 deepens the mythology and introduces more emotional challenges, while Halo Reach showcases the sacrifice of an entire squad to ensure humanity's future. The story of Halo is not just about battles, but about survival, sacrifice, and the weight of carrying the fate of a universe on your shoulders. Another franchise that deserves mention is Gears of War, especially the first 3 games, which were insane, a true milestone in third-person shooters. The series takes place in a devastated future, where humanity fights for survival against a terrifying alien race. From the first game, the saga built a rich universe, filled with brutal conflicts, twists, and sacrifices that marked generations of players. The gameplay is based on strategic cover, intense gunfights, and iconic weapons. The campaigns are full of epic moments, whether escaping from colossal creatures, defending besieged bases, or facing enemy army leaders in memorable battles. All of this is packed into a cinematic rhythm that keeps the adrenaline high. Years and hundreds of games can pass, but to this day, chainsawing an enemy in half is one of the most satisfying sensations I've ever experienced. Now, let's talk about a game that redefined graphical limits and brought a new level of freedom to the first-person shooter genre. Crysis emerged as a phenomenon, impressing with its realism and open-world gameplay. The franchise takes you to dynamic battlefields, where the iconic nanosuit offers tactical abilities that turn each confrontation into a strategic experience. From tropical jungles to devastated cities, each setting challenges you to find new ways to survive and eliminate enemies. The first game stood out for its open world and freedom of approach. Crysis 2 brought a more linear pace, adapting the combat to the urban corridors of a besieged New York City. Crysis 3 refined the formula, adding new weapons and tools, like the compound bow, which favored a more stealthy approach. In all games, the AI requires planning, as an impulsive attack can result in an unforgiving response. The nanosuit allows you to alternate between brute force, speed, and invisibility, ensuring multiple ways to handle each situation. The series is also remembered for its technical impact, always being used as a benchmark to measure the performance of new hardware. Whether in its original versions or the remaster, Crysis remains one of the most significant franchises in the genre, combining cutting-edge graphics with mechanics that give you complete control over the action. A true test for tactics, reflexes, and even for any machine attempting to run it. Next, we have a game that challenges the conventions of military shooters. Spec Ops The Line doesn't treat war as a spectacle of heroism, but as an unbearable burden. The story follows Captain Martin Walker and his team on a reconnaissance mission in Dubai, now a desert of ruins and chaos. What begins as a simple search for a missing commander quickly turns into a psychological nightmare. The game doesn't offer easy choices, and each decision leads to devastating consequences. Inspired by Heart of Darkness, Walker's journey is a slow, painful descent into madness. The combat follows the third-person shooter formula, but always with a narrative purpose. Each confrontation reinforces the growing tension, making violence uncomfortable and without glamour. There is no explicit morality system, but your actions affect how the story unfolds. The dynamic setting, with sandstorms and destroyed buildings, adds a strategic element to the shootouts. The true weight of the game lies in how it portrays the psychological impact of war. Spec Ops stands out as one of the boldest games in the genre, subverting expectations and leaving a deep mark. It's a shooter that doesn't want you to feel like a hero, but rather to question every shot you take. Moving on, we have a big name in modern FPS. Doom Eternal takes intensity to the limit with a brutal and frenetic campaign. The war against the forces of hell reaches a new level, putting you on a relentless journey to prevent the total destruction of humanity. The narrative delves deeper into the mythology of this universe, revealing ancient secrets and expanding the protagonist's legacy as a legendary warrior. Each battle pushes the limits of what's possible in a fast-paced combat experience, demanding quick strategies and sharper reflexes as the threat grows. The story unfolds in a setting where Earth has been devastated, overrun by demonic hordes spreading chaos. You appear as the last hope, crossing destroyed landscapes and corrupted bases in search of answers and a way to reverse the massacre. Amidst the battles, fragments of the ancient civilization tell the story of a war that has raged for centuries, revealing that the threat goes far beyond what was imagined. The game is not just about the conflict between human and demon, but delves into a plot that involves betrayals, sacrifices, and the true origin of the protagonist's power. Even in the face of overwhelming forces, the journey goes forward without hesitation, leading to increasingly colossal confrontations against entities that defy all logic. Each encounter reinforces the feeling that this is a one-way fight, where the only option is to push forward and destroy everything that opposes you. Doom Eternal elevates the experience to a new level, ensuring every moment is filled with tension and pure adrenaline. Now, let's talk about another big name in modern FPS. Bioshock delivered one of the most immersive and impactful narratives in the genre, blending philosophy, horror, and action in a unique world. The submerged city of Rapture isn't just a setting, but a living, decaying character, full of mysteries that challenge any notion of utopia. Every corner reveals fragments of a society that tried to defy the rules of the world and paid a terrible price for it. Amidst the ruins of luxury and corrupted ideals, the descent into the depths isn't just physical, but also moral, as the horrors of Rapture unfold before your eyes. The sequel expands this universe by offering a new perspective on the events, showing that even in the midst of collapse, there are still secrets to be revealed. If the city once seemed like a graveyard of failed ideas, now there's something darker behind its forced reconstruction. The horror doesn't come just from the visible degradation, but from the forces still fighting to keep this distorted dream alive. Meanwhile, the third game takes everything to the sky, but doesn't leave behind the same philosophical issues and moral dilemmas. What seemed like an escape to a floating paradise soon proves to be as dangerous as Rapture, proving that ideological extremes always carry a heavy price. The journey through these worlds isn't just about action and brutal confrontations with deformed and insane enemies. Each step is accompanied by a constant sense of tension, where the real threat doesn't always come from weapons or grotesque creatures, but from the choices themselves. The past haunts every corner, revealing that the line between progress and destruction is thin, and the greatest tragedies begin with good intentions. Bioshock is more than just a shooter. It's a descent into the unknown, where the greatest enemy may be the very quest for absolute power. Continuing, we have Dishonored, which transforms a political conflict into a war fought in the shadows, where every decision shapes the fate of a city on the brink of collapse. Dunwall, devastated by a plague and controlled by oppressive forces, has become a silent battleground. There are no declared armies, only factions conspiring for power, nobles plotting assassinations, and guards imposing order with an iron fist. Between dark alleys and luxurious palaces, the real clash happens far from the people's eyes, in a deadly game of espionage and revenge. The conflict isn't just about direct combat. The city offers different paths, allowing for brutal or stealthy approaches, making each mission a test of strategy and adaptation. Narrow streets hide secret passages, abandoned buildings serve as infiltration points, and each guarded corridor presents a new possibility. The forces ruling the city can be eliminated without anyone noticing, or struck down brutally, leaving a trail of chaos. Every choice weighs heavily, affecting the very structure of the city and how the conflict unfolds. The war in the shadows doesn't end with a simple final blow. The fate of the city depends on how the conflict is fought, and each action shapes the narrative in a unique way. The city reacts to violence, becoming more chaotic and oppressive as blood is spilled, while discreet approaches maintain the illusion of order. Between betrayals, sacrifices, and plot twists, Dishonored builds a world where true power doesn't lie in the weapons wielded, but in the decisions made. Next, we have Far Cry 3, which redefined the identity of the franchise. The story throws you onto a paradisiacal island, a refuge that quickly reveals itself as hell, where survival is the only rule. The danger comes not only from the mercenaries dominating the territory, but from the jungle itself, filled with hungry beasts and natural traps. The isolation forces you to evolve, swapping fear for violence, and each choice drags you further from the life you once knew before this nightmare. The world reacts to what you do, and the deeper you dive into the war, the more the island shapes itself to the chaos you spread. The freedom to approach objectives in different ways, skill progression, and using the environment as a combat tool became trademarks. The forward outposts, enemy-held strategic points, encourage creativity, allowing stealthy, explosive attacks, or even letting nature do the dirty work. The hunt for resources isn't just a detail, but a necessity, as weapons, ammunition, and upgrades depend on what you conquer from the island itself. The sense of progress doesn't just come from the story, but from how the environment transforms as you take control of each region. The narrative isn't just a pretext for action, but a study of how violence can consume those who wield it. What starts as a rescue mission becomes a personal war, where the pleasure in combat grows alongside the thirst for vengeance. In the next position, we have Vanguard, which dives into World War II with a cinematic and intense approach. The story follows a group of soldiers from different nations, brought together to stop a secret Nazi plan. From Stalingrad to the jungles of the Pacific, each scenario reveals a new facet of the conflict. The battles are brutal, but it is in the characters that the game finds its strength. They're not just soldiers, but people marked by war, fighting for something bigger. The campaign alternates between the present and flashbacks that reveal the protagonist's origins. Each mission shows the events that transformed them into the warriors they are today. The narrative highlights the horror and tension of war, making each combat more personal. There are moments of frantic action, but also of silence and reflection. The game doesn't just recreate the war, but explores its human impact. The gameplay maintains the franchise's classic intensity, but with a more emotional approach. The shootouts are fast, the battles immersive, and the settings impressive, However, the campaign is short and leaves the feeling that it could have been explored more. Still, Vanguard balances action and narrative in a striking way. It's not just a war game, but a story about courage and sacrifice. Next, we have Metal Gear The Phantom Pain, which took the franchise to a new level of freedom, where each choice shapes the battlefield. The missions don't follow a fixed script, challenging you to plan, improvise, and adapt. War isn't just a cinematic spectacle, but a dynamic environment where every mistake has consequences. Infiltrations, ambushes, and direct attacks are planned by you, with no predefined solutions. Survival requires intelligence, strategy, and full control of the mechanics. The story unfolds amid the Cold War, filled with conspiracies and betrayals. You lead a mercenary army, recruiting soldiers and expanding your base to face a global threat. But the real war happens in the minds of the characters, between moral dilemmas and hidden truths. The fragmented narrative requires you to connect the pieces, uncovering secrets buried in the past. Each victory comes at a price, and the world offers no easy answers. The gameplay refines stealth and action, allowing each mission to be unique. You can opt for precise stealth approaches or brutal direct confrontations, with no limitations. Managing the mother base adds depth, making resources and soldiers essential to progress. The open world and advanced AI create dynamic challenges that require strategy. For those who enjoy espionage and gunfights, this game is perfect. And tell me, which of these games have you played, and what did you think of them? And of course, there's always a game missing from the list, so leave a comment on which one you would add and which one you'd remove. If you love gunfights, I've left a video on the screen with the best campaigns in FPS games. Just click to watch. If you can, please subscribe to the channel to help me grow and never wonder again what to play. I'm leaving 2 videos in the card, one that I personally selected for you and another that YouTube picked. Just click on one to watch. A big hug, happy gaming, and see you tomorrow.